across the nation. So our next session is to hear from the states and a perspective of the governors. We will have Governor Tony Evers from the state of Wisconsin. He'll be sharing his thoughts on Wisconsin's academic career planning process, followed by Amanda Winters. And because I'm not going to jump in and do a transition, Amanda will follow the governor, but I do want everyone to just recognize Amanda and her leadership. So if I could, I want to do a brief introduction of Amanda. She currently serves as a program director for the NGA Center for Best Practices, where she serves as an advisor for state leaders on post-secondary and workforce policies. Her work most recently is focused on financing of schools, equity, and measurable outcomes. She's also worked on processes on longitudinal data, short-term credentialing, work-based learning, occupational licensure, higher education, community college market, university market. So she has a breadth of experience that's going to really overlay everything that you just shared with us in the report and how this can influence states' progresses in these areas. Before joining the NGA, Amanda was an assistant director for academic affairs at Illinois' Board of Higher Education, where she worked on issues P20. So she has some experience also at the early education levels. She's been an instrumental leader for us on the CCD and a continued advocate for the role that career awareness and career readiness can have on the life of our students. Amanda holds a bachelor's degree in history from the University of Missouri and a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and a master's degree in history from the University of Illinois. So we are so pleased to have Amanda joining us for this next presentation. But before we get to Amanda, I have the distinct honor of introducing our own governor of the state of Wisconsin, Governor Tony Evers. On November 6th of 2018, the people of Wisconsin voted Tony Evers the 46th governor of our state. Prior to his election, he served as the Wisconsin State Superintendent of Public Instruction, winning the statewide elections in 2009, 2013, and 2017. With over 3 decades of public educational experience, Governor Evers has dedicated his life to fighting for Wisconsin's youth and serving the people of Wisconsin. As a lifelong educator himself, the governor believes in bringing people together to solve problems facing the state and putting the people of Wisconsin first. Under his leadership, Wisconsin has had record investments in public education, including the implementation of Wisconsin's academic and career planning standard. This was mentioned in the CCD report, so you're going to hear a little bit more about that as we go forward in the next 2 days. He began his career in 1976 and served Wisconsin students, parents, and citizens throughout Wisconsin ever since. Born and raised in Plymouth, Wisconsin, Governor Evers graduated from Plymouth High School and earned his bachelor's and master's and doctoral degrees from the University of Wisconsin at Madison. He's married to his wife, Kathy, who is also an educator, and they have located it in Madison. They live in Madison, continue to provide great leadership for our state and support all the investments that you're going to hear about from the governor. So with that, please welcome Governor Tony Evers.
Hey folks, Governor Tony Evers here, and thank you, Bryan, for your introduction, and thank you for your leadership in making Gateway Technical College one of the best technical colleges we have here in Wisconsin and across the nation. I want to start today by congratulating the Coalition for Career Development Center, its board, and Boston University on the release of this important report on the status of career readiness across the nation. I also want to thank Leo Reddy, the founder of the CCD Center, for his lifelong commitment to education, and Dr. Scott Solberg of Boston University and Gene Eddy, CEO of the American Student Assistants, for their leadership in developing this important report. As a former educator, principal, superintendent, and state superintendent, I've spent most of my career working in Wisconsin schools. That's why I believe, as I often said before, what's best for our kids is what's best for our state. And doing what's best for our kids means ensuring that every kid has access to a high-quality public education, regardless of their zip code or socioeconomic status, and ensuring that their education prepares them for success after high school, whether they choose to pursue further education or to start their careers. That's why when I was Wisconsin State Superintendent, we embarked on a mission to design, develop, and implement a model of academic and career planning, or ACP. The The ACP model is a collaborative, student-driven process that allows students to cultivate their own informed decisions for success after high school and engage in learning opportunities to explore post-secondary and career options. We found that when we combine academic preparation with career awareness, exploration, and planning, our students have the best chance of creating a path forward to achieving their dreams. And our schools are helping them move along on those paths through dual enrollment programs, which allow high school students to benefit from college courses, and by providing industry-recognized credential programs, which help students obtain valuable certifications so that they're ready to compete for good-paying jobs once they graduate. These types of career experience and academic preparation programs are critical for reducing the financial burdens on students and their families and helping students be better informed and prepared for their post-secondary plans. I'm incredibly proud of our work on career readiness here in Wisconsin and proud that our model is being recognized by the CCD Center's new report. Our nation needs a well-defined career development system that will help all learners with high-quality career development services and technologies that will help secure productive employment in their chosen career as efficiently and cost-effectively as possible. Bringing education, government, and industry leaders together to discuss the social and emotional infrastructure of our kids is as important as ever because our future depends on the young minds and talents of today's youth to solve the challenges of tomorrow. With that, I want to thank you for all you're doing to strengthen career readiness programs across the nation, and I hope you have a great rest of your summit.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be with you. My name is Amanda Winters, and I am Program Director for Post-Secondary Education at the National Governors Association Center for Best Practices. First of all, thank you, Bryan, for introducing me prior to the governor's remarks. I am going to go ahead and share my screen really quickly so that I can provide a presentation. Let me go ahead and okay, I think we should be all set. Hopefully you can see it. I can't see myself, so that's always weird and off-putting. But I'm looking forward to providing this presentation for you today so that you all can engage with me as I walk through some of my thoughts here. So come here just a moment so I can see things. Nope, that's all right. Hopefully you all are seeing the right things. Could you confirm for me, Scott, that everything is kosher?
We see your first slide.
Okay, wonderful. Sorry. All of this is very confusing for me, and it's 2 years into an almost entirely virtual world, so apologies. First, I wanted to take a moment to reflect on a few things I heard this morning, and then move into my conversation around governor's priorities in this space. First of all, for governors, career readiness is rooted in the K-12 system, but branches into working across an ecosystem, which includes disconnected youth, adult basic education pathways, adults who need to enter new fields and advance to family-sustaining wage jobs. So initiatives and investments intersect with education, workforce, and human services across those agencies and their data systems, which is a complex web to navigate. It was really exciting to hear from Governor Evers this morning or this afternoon, a truly education-focused governor. It is always exciting when there is a governor who has such unique and specific insight into state systems of education and opportunities to support our students. On the condition of career readiness report, you just heard all of this great information around what's available, what's been analyzed, opportunities for additional work and resources, the recommendations that came out from that research. I just wanted to reflect on a couple things that were mentioned. First of all, being both college and career ready. That's certainly a dichotomy that we are working to bridge as we're talking about state policy leading into post-secondary opportunities. College and career ready, what's the difference? Should these things be merged together? What are the indicators of both? How do we measure readiness in these spaces? And certainly the career and academic planning piece of this, which is exciting to hear about states who are really putting investments towards their career and academic plans and the data that can be collected in conjunction with those, which is nuanced and comes from local levels up to a state level, then to a national conversation. And there's a lot of layers of nuance within that data that states can be looking at to figure out what populations are seeing a gap in opportunity and outcomes, and where interventions can be most impactful. I will say that there is a nuance with a lot of this state policy work. Once we start looking nationally and then we dig in at a state level, this work exists across numerous agencies. Isn't just owned by one space or one leader within a state. That's why the leadership of a governor is so critical to this type of conversation, because they can truly create a strategy that speaks across their state systems and the data systems and investments that need to be braided together or connected together in order to get a true picture of career readiness and where we're falling short within our state approaches. Another thing that I was thinking about as the questions came through from the chat is really that idea of student agency within our state initiatives, and the way we can make this type of data and this research and these recommendations that have come out from the CCD report and from other related reports, how we can make that actionable for the learner, and how agency around data and career advising and the understanding of what career pathway opportunities are available to them can not just be an administrative exercise of us putting some things on paper and mapping out what could be good career pathways or might be good transition points, but how can we give students more agency to be able to navigate these systems? That's not something that state policy is really good at, but it should be able to make space and have an understanding of the user experience when we're thinking about data sharing, and the support of counselors as they're trying to engage with students to make this data really manageable and usable for learners. So I'm going to take just a moment to talk a little bit about the National Governors Association and where we sit in sort of the spectrum of partners that are talking about career readiness. The National Governors Association is an organization that's been around over 100 years. Teddy Roosevelt started the organization, and ever since we have been serving the nation's governors of the 55 states and territories. And we are excited this year to be led by Governor Asa Hutchinson of Arkansas and our Vice Chair, Governor Murphy of New Jersey. Governor Murphy will be stepping into the chairmanship at our summer meeting in July. So both of these governors who are leading our work are committed to career readiness and to connecting education and work. For example, Governor Hutchinson, his chair's initiative, which every governor is allowed to have a chair's initiative while they are leading the National Governors Association. And really, it's just a highlight and a focus on an area that they believe is critical for other governors to consider, a strategy, a way their state can be a model, and other states can learn from them or learn with them about a critical issue. So for Governor Hutchinson, that issue is K-12 computer science. So he has spent, if you know anything about Arkansas over the past several years, Governor Hutchinson has been all in on computer science at the K-12 level, building partnerships to support teachers and students in engaging with computer science and digital skill development in the K-12 space, as well as engaging with employers who are looking to give internships and support to those students as they move through those those pathways that lead to careers. So he is deep in the weeds of thinking about the ways in which state policy can affect career outcomes for students. So we're very excited to have such a forward-thinking governor as our chair this year, and excited to see what Governor Murphy will launch as he comes into the chairmanship. But New Jersey is certainly a leader on education and workforce connections for people in their state. So I continue to be inspired by the leadership that comes from the governor's office. The members at large, you will see on the side of the slide, this is the rest of our executive committee. And you'll see, as you're thinking about some of these examples and case studies that you're hearing about today, see that many of them are from the states that are leading the National Governors Association and providing a strategic direction for our organization. So we're very excited to be able to be learning with and from these state leaders. Now I'm showing you this, it's a general overview of what the Center for Best Practices at the National Governors Association looks like. We're the technical assistance and consultative arm of the National Governors Association. But what I find most exciting about the work that we're doing in the post-secondary space and education at large is that absolutely every single area within the center is connected through a career-ready conversation or post-secondary and education strategies. For instance, cybersecurity, certainly a policy space on its own, but one of their major areas of focus and need for advisors on cybersecurity at governor's offices across the country is the development of a future-ready workforce. So that's just an example. Infrastructure, in the infrastructure bill, huge amounts of money are put towards expanding pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship opportunities in the transportation and infrastructure fields at the state level. So there are places where we are leveraging these strategies around career readiness as a connective tissue across almost all of the policy areas that we're working in day to day. So the work you're talking about today and that was discussed in the Condition of Career Readiness report, they're foundational to pretty much every piece of policy that's coming out of the NGA Center for Best Practices. We are rooted in the need for a strong and supported future workforce that has those skills that are able to tackle the policy issues and strategies and technologies needed to build the future economies in our states. So when we're thinking specifically about state career readiness priorities, this falls into a bunch of buckets. So I tried to throw out just some very broad approaches here that will hopefully inform some of the work that, especially the ecosystem of the work that we're talking about. Certainly K-12 career readiness programs are the foundation. As I mentioned, this work is rooted in the K-12 space, but there's a lot of aligned or connected issues that fill out the picture of how a governor's office is thinking about broadly career readiness. Certainly advising, counseling, and supports for students. I would also highlight that the advising and the counseling at K-12, at the workforce centers, at college access points, at the post-secondary institutions, at career advising, community-based organizations, all of that is folded in here. That understanding of the need to provide that person-to-person support for people who are trying to navigate our state systems and are trying to move into either career pathways or to good jobs within their regions. And I threw supports on the end of there. It's one word, but it includes a lot of context. The supports that are needed around mental health supports, which are certainly rising to the top for many states' consideration right now. around housing, transportation, things that keep individuals from being successful in career pathways, both at the K-12 and in the post-secondary space, because they don't have these sort of foundational things taken care of in their life, so they can't focus on the education and the training to move to the next level. So while supports was just smushed in there, it's actually a huge standalone issue that states are thinking about when they're talking about connecting initiatives and work across agencies, and when governors are thinking about a holistic view of children, the whole child, the whole family, and how all of these other initiatives or federal programs might fold in to support making someone career ready through supporting some of these other spaces to allow them to get that additional training or education that they need to move to what's next. Then it was mentioned before, the engagement with industry. So alignment with industry needs and a conversation around credentials. This is where we're working with a large group of states right now where we're thinking about skills-based credentials and pathways. Governors are excited to move to a skills-based system. It's not easy. We're certainly talking about competencies and then skills in the workforce sense. We just saw 2 executive orders over the past couple months come out of both a Republican state and a Democratic state. We have Maryland and Colorado, where the governors are saying we're going to shift our state hiring towards a skills-based structure and taking away the degree requirements for many of the jobs that don't actually require that, but it's been used as sort of a gatekeeping element. We're going to remove that to provide more access and opportunity for people to join the public sector workforce. So we're very excited to see some of those moves. And I think that ties directly in to the conversation around career readiness. So thinking about what pathways are open to you, even if a degree might not be your plan or your first step. Career and technical education, the layering in of the planning around Perkins CTE programs. It's a perfect connective tissue between the K-12 and the post-secondary space, where we're talking about sort of some of these technical-based or emerging fields. We've seen a lot of growth in states investing in IT and health-related fields, advanced manufacturing, which those are the 3 pretty much biggest areas for almost every state in the US. Is, these career and technical education provides that combination of contextualized learning, project-based learning, work-based learning that really leads to this rich career readiness understanding. What does it mean to know what these fields are like, and then to be able to step into actual work experiences so that you can understand what these fields would mean for you in the future and whether this is what you're looking to do. And then work-based learning and apprenticeship. We've been working historically over the past almost decade with a large group of states on issues around work-based learning. And work-based learning, again, also exists in lots of different agencies and states. The data is hard to come by, and it's siloed amongst agencies, usually connected to programs. So you have programs or federal funding that might have certain reporting requirements. But states are just now really thinking about how to combine those data sets together to get a clearer picture of the supports around work-based learning that are being provided in their state. And apprenticeship has gotten, it's the hot topic. There's lots of funding out there, support for the growth of apprenticeship. And we're seeing a lot of movement in the pre-apprenticeship space as well, which ties into the conversation around career readiness for youth and how we need to understand the skills and opportunities that exist in the pre-apprenticeship space. And then just building on the employer connection too, but also in sort of the resources space, public-private partnerships. We've seen a lot of states as a whole partnering with folks like Google, with IBM, to think about their industry certifications, their skill development resources, the way in which they can help to upskill and support faculty who are teaching in some of these new emerging spaces, like around cybersecurity or AI or cloud computing. That industry connection and the teacher support that comes with it, again, ties strategically right into conversations around career readiness and how to support that, and how to support teachers in being able to actively engage in those processes by our professional development support of their work. I just wanted to highlight a few other words from governors to show you that this really is high on their minds. We took a look at the 2022 State of the State addresses. This is really a good place for us to just see what signals governors are throwing about around their priorities. What's coming out of your office over the next year? What are you really focusing on? So I have a little mix here. Certainly Governor McKee of Rhode Island, we're seeing lots of work happen in Rhode Island. He's launching Rhode Island's first higher ed academy, which is a state effort to meet Rhode Islanders where they are, provide access to good education and training in order to help them gain the skills to be successful and obtain a credential or a degree. Governor McMaster's of South Carolina is establishing and launching the South Carolina Future Makers, which is connecting students with internships and apprenticeships, reaches into virtually every high school, connects to their technical colleges. I mean, these are they only have a certain amount of time to speak at their State of the State addresses. And so these are things that they're like, this is my landmark project around these issues. And you can see from Rhode Island and from South Carolina, they're really marketing this as, look, this is the way I want to approach career development, is making these connections across agencies down into the high schools, engaging with our post-secondary education partners, creating pathways to jobs and to furthered career opportunities for students. And then certainly Governor Wolf of Pennsylvania, they're trying to make their work more relevant at both of those spaces by making investments in STEM education and CTE and dual credit. So these are some call outs that I just want to show you. There's more, but I decided just to grab a couple to show you that this isn't just something that states are giving lip service to. This is something that is actively being considered as major investments across many states and that tie together education, workforce, pathways for students. I also just wanted to highlight a few of these foundational issues that when we're talking to states like the three I just highlighted, that are also, there's complicating the picture, extra nuance a part of the picture, but just to emphasize, it's a complex landscape for development of these types of programs. First and foremost, COVID and the state of students. We've seen governors across the political spectrum talking about social emotional learning, talking about mental health supports for students as we hopefully emerge from the pandemic, and academic recovery. So there's these critical, just in time type of interventions where states are trying to invest in getting students up to speed, especially those that are in under-supported districts, and thinking about, again, the whole student, thinking about supporting mental health. It looks very different in different districts, but it's a concern across the board, and it complicates the straightforward approaches to career readiness and counseling when there's sort of this layer of additional complications when you're thinking about what counselors have to deal with, what districts have to deal with dealing with student social emotional learning and mental health issues. Certainly I've mentioned it already, but the challenge of data collection in these spaces. So coordinating across systems, it's very challenging. It will continue to be challenging. I'm going to talk about just a couple data points in just a minute about the continued challenge of data, but it's I have to acknowledge it as the fact that there are gaps that states are looking to fill. Some are doing it better than others, or at least moving more quickly than others. So we have some good examples of work out there, but there's still a lot of growth to be done there. And then preparations for jobs of the future. So I think all systems in the K-12 and post-secondary space are thinking about constant evolution and development. And that is in itself a challenge, while also being exciting. But certainly around places like tech and healthcare, there's continued development and advancements in technology, in the ways that people interact with others in these roles, and the skills that you need in order to be successful in these fields. Certainly, we're seeing a lot of emphasis from states on digital skills right now. Thinking about what that looks like, how do you measure them, how do you teach them, and because they're necessary for pretty much every job. These digital skills foundational to opening up equitable pathways to opportunity. And then counseling and advising. I've mentioned that before, and it's mentioned in the career readiness report, but it's hard to coordinate alignment across these systems that sit in very separate spaces, but are all looking to advise and support learners on what could be next. So continues to be a challenge, an alignment challenge. I wanted to say a couple things about data really quickly. First of all, these are just a couple data points that I pulled from the Data Quality Campaign's report for 2021. This is just to show you that, there are real gaps out there. 29 states reported career and technical education enrollment or completion with a net increase of 4 states from the previous year. 5 states reported military enlistment, while 5 states reported workforce participation after high school. We don't have, it's not like every state has this complete picture of data. There are lots of gaps, and there are lots of good examples of work that we can learn from, but data is an investment, and it's a long-term investment. And it's not the sexiest thing to propose that we want to do long-term data collection, but it drives innovation, and it drives change, and it drives meaningful interventions. Also, that state leaders are more interested in a complete long-term understanding of post-secondary and career journeys. There's a lot of governors asking of their data systems, what happened to folks? Where did they go? What happened with these students? Did they finish college? Did they then work? So states are trying to respond and build out their data systems in order to be able to answer some of these longer-term questions. But also, even though we still have lots of gaps and it's a lot of evolution, state legislators considered 86 bills and passed 32 new laws to govern data around post-secondary transitions. So there's movement, there's policy or initiatives being developed. And so hopefully we'll see some positive changes and lessening of the gaps that we're seeing in state data systems. I did also want to throw out just a couple things around work-based learning. This is a huge priority for governors' offices, and there's exciting things happening out there. I would just flag 3 states for you as just a smattering of examples. First of all, Utah, with their Learn and Work program. It's industry-led pathway programs, matching student talent with industries to build a pipeline of workers. The life sciences, helicopter design is one of them, cloud-based computing. They're also working with Amazon in order to develop curriculum to support students in moving into that cloud computing space. An exciting thing about Utah as well is we're talking about the ecosystem of career readiness. The lieutenant governor in Utah, she set up what they're calling returnships or return to work initiatives for people re-entering the workforce after a longer absence. She actually developed this, after realizing that when she entered the state legislature, that she was not qualified to be her own intern. And so she went back to school, but then also is trying to create and provide pathways for people who've been out of the workforce to become career ready. So that adult layer of this work, I think, is critical to include in our larger thinking about career readiness at the state level. Also, we're at Kansas, which is connecting a state strategy around advancing equity and opportunity in the state to local implementation, and working on advanced technology with K-12 districts. In southwestern Kansas, there's a school district that purchased 3 augmented reality units to facilitate 3D human body experiences for students in the health sciences. It's a collaboration between a local district, state education and workforce agencies, community colleges, business supporters. These are the types of partnerships that are vital to advancing innovation and opportunity within work-based learning pathways. And then North Carolina, I wanted to bring them up because it's just an example of another layer of consideration around work-based learning. In North Carolina, they have a program called Link It, which is linking North Carolina with innovative talent. It's a statewide paid internship program for neurodiverse individuals with autism spectrum disorder. It includes state agencies, employers, and nonprofits who are focused on this population. And it was created under Governor Cooper's leadership to provide employment experience to young adults with autism, as well as to provide employers this pipeline of talent that's often missed during conventional recruitment processes. So there had to be strong partnerships built here. There's 16 employer partners at the outset. They had to onboard the employers who wanted to engage here, had to talk about how they would retain these employees after internships, after successful internships. Interns are guaranteed an interview. 90% of their participants have found full-time work. Also, Governor Cooper is putting forward the state as being an employer of people who move through this process. So the state being an example of engaging with those students who move through work-based learning pathways is, again, circling back to the Colorado and Maryland examples around skills-based hiring. I think there's opportunities at the gubernatorial level, which are being taken by a lot of forward-looking governors, for the state to be an example of how we want to engage as an employer, how we want our employers to engage with our students, and the model that we want to be for the ways in which we can access different populations within the state to build our talent pipelines. I'm going to throw this up here. I'm sharing these slides afterwards so you can have these links. But we're thinking about that ecosystem of support and structure for students. I wanted to throw out the IBM Skills Build program, which has adult basic ed as well as K-12 pathways. It's a partnership between IBM and school districts, as well as different community-based organizations that are working with adult populations. And it's to build digital skills. And it's a true public-private partnership that we've seen some really exciting collaborations. And then also in Arizona, there's a collaboration with Intel around developing out pathways for AI. AI is woven into so many different career pathways that are future focused. And this is just a skills space that teachers and students need that direct industry engagement in to make sure they're up on the latest technology and structures within private industry so that students can actually emerge from these trainings ready to engage in the marketplace. And then I just wanted to throw out short-term credentials is I think a crossover space between post-secondary and K-12 as we're thinking about the opportunities that exist to support students. And then I also wanted to just emphasize sort of the basic needs supports. We're thinking about career readiness. All students' living situations are not equal. Therefore, we can't expect their engagement with our systems to be equal or equitable, unless we're able to weave in conversation around supporting around food security, transportation, housing security, etc. We need to understand what our populations look like within our education systems so that we can provide some targeted supports for students to be able to succeed. So I'm just about out of time here, but I did want to close in sort of the moving forward space. There's opportunities, I think, for the Coalition for Career Development to play a clear role in advancing strategies to improve our systems at the state level. First, you've already seen an example of what I think they're most poised to do, which is research, helping us understand the data sets that are out there, what they tell us, how we can use them, leverage them to more fully examine our state strategies and processes, to examine inequities within our systems, to examine opportunities for further investment in our data systems and in the case studies that provide us some good insights as to what we might try in order to better serve students. Also, collaboration. Certainly states, as I've mentioned, are collaborating across public-private partnerships between districts and higher ed providers, across workforce, with community-based organizations in order to support students. And that leads into my next point, which is we need a continuous focus on equity. To me, the impact that this work has is when it opens up opportunities that were not there before for populations who are not being served by our systems. So more equitable access to opportunity pathways and pathways that might start with short-term credentials and they might, lead to apprenticeships. It was mentioned in the chat that we shouldn't just be thinking about degrees. I agree. However, I don't think any of our pathways should cut off the opportunity to engage in degree pathways if that's what the student would like to do. They shouldn't be cul-de-sacs of opportunity. They should leave open the doors for what's next in whichever way the student wants to go. So that's on us at the state level to make sure that if a student moves in a certain direction, we're not unnecessarily closing doors to other pathway opportunities for them. And then I really think there needs to be a feedback loop between policy and practice. Many of you on the line might be practitioners within regions or at educational institutions. Your work has to inform policy development, and policymakers have to engage and understand how recently enacted policies have worked in implementation and what needs to change. We have a tendency to enact things or make things happen and then move on to what's next, rather than a system of continuous improvement of those policies to understand how to target them, how to implement strategies to truly get to the outcomes we're looking for, which is where the data is so necessary. It's layering in that data that tells us, are we doing what we were set out to do? Or do we need to try something different? Do we need to scrap this and move on to something else? We have to be okay with doing that if the data is telling us we're not headed in the right direction. So I'm so thankful for the career readiness report that you just heard about. And I think it's a step in the right direction for the CCD Center to be thinking about how these types of data analyses can impact and influence the state conversations around strategies to support and enhance career readiness for all. So with that, Bryan, I know I've provided some overarching reflections about state approaches and strategies. I mentioned at the outset that much of this work is rooted in K-12. but it's a complex ecosystem that stretches far beyond that. So as we close out this portion of the meeting, I wonder if you might take a moment from where you sit and reflect on the post-secondary partners' role in this work as we think about everything that's already been presented at the summit today.
Well, first, Amanda, let me say thank you very much for your presentation and the leadership that you provide for our nation. We're so proud to have an advocacy voice at the National Governors Association level. I think what you've drawn out for us is that there is a lot of great work that's going on, and we just need to continue to shine a light on all of that. I remember way back when I was first starting my career, North Carolina was national leader in tech prep, and we continue to see that focus on dual enrollment, so important today. Arkansas, a pioneering state in the area of school to work, and which has led to many of our states now having youth apprenticeship and work-based learning programs. And you can go down the list. Great to see Kansas statewide initiative going on. I love the idea of return ships in Utah. That's probably going to pick up some momentum, I would see here. So there are some really great components that are taking place in the states, but you hit on some really key areas of gap too. The idea of, how do we get collective data systems that are going to be able to communicate and give us true pictures of what's going on? I think sometimes, depending where we are within our state, we assume that, every state must submit the same kind of data. I was surprised here that only 29 states submit career and technical education data. I mean, I lived in Wisconsin my whole life, so I thought that was a natural progression that every state did it. So we learn every time we gather like this. But more specifically for post-secondary education, and I'll just focus on the community and technical college world at this time, because that's where I'm spending my time. It really points to our mission. What is the intended purpose? And we have to keep in mind that we serve high school age youth in dual enrollment programs. Very important that we bridge that gap at an even earlier age. We learned today from the report, probably elementary and middle school, as we begin to transition awareness for young people into the post-secondary world. But we also serve adult students. Many of those adult students are working adults, so they're trying to balance a lot of the challenges that you described for us earlier with mental health, academic recovery, the types of jobs and skill sets that are transforming the way they work and are able to sustain their families. We also have serving students that are looking for career changes. So now you talk about focus on cybersecurity or automated manufacturing or robotics. Those are all new skill sets, that jobs of the future. And we have a lot of adults that want to transition into those spaces as well, including things like dislocated workers, where maybe impacts of events like COVID might have forced someone out of their traditional work environment into a new work environment. Those challenges face our students, the incarcerated pre-college English language learners. There's a list of them. So post-secondary education has a very important role to play, because we hit every sector of the community and every sector of the economy. And I think the more we can engage at the post-secondary level, that not every student coming to us has an idea of how they're going to be successful in their career path, but show them all those options, build the support systems, whether it's housing, food insecurity, tuition support, whatever it might be. We'll be able to sustain at both ends, the post-secondary levels, early education, middle school, high school, building dual enrollment, career awareness, more counselors in the schools, internships for youth at an earlier age, to the adult learner who is transitioning at some point in their life, and how can we take those wraparound services that community and technical colleges are so good at and engage them at a higher level, so people are making informed decisions that are going to help support their goals and be able to achieve that economic prosperity that they're looking for. So that's a lot in a couple of minutes, but I want to thank you again